The Broncos traded for Jaylen Waddle, and they better at least make the Super Bowl next year, because the one thing the Broncos needed last season, the only thing that they were truly missing, was a wide receiver one. And trading your first and your third round picks in the 2026 draft tells me that the Denver Broncos think that Jaylen Waddle is a wide receiver one. However, is he really a wide receiver one? I don't know about you guys. To me, Jaylen Waddle is somewhere between the 13th and the 20th best wide receiver in football. That is a wide receiver one, but not a truly elite wide receiver one. Jaylen Waddle is really good, but his performance the last 3 years has not been the same as it was the first two. That's partially due to the situation in Miami and his quarterback play, but it's also to do with his performance and some minor injuries that it seems like just watching him play, he'll like leave the game basically every other game with a different form of injury for Jaylen Waddle. So yes, the Denver Broncos just improved, and Jaylen Waddle in this Sean Payton system could go absolutely nuclear, but this is also basically the only impact move we've seen their entire offseason so far, considering before this, they hadn't signed a single free agent, and now with the remaining free agents not being too special, and with their lack of 2026 draft capital, this move has to work for the Denver Broncos, and they must compete for a Super Bowl in 2026. But I talked a lot about this from the Denver Broncos perspective. Let's hear the Miami Dolphins perspective, shall we? And lucky for me, I got the absolutely perfect person to go to talk about that. So, Joe, I want to go to Joe first. No, just kidding. Sammy, I guess I got to go to you first. What do you think? Your Dolphins traded away Jaylen Waddle.
That was terrible. Why would you ever do that? I was so excited.
Diabolical, brother.
That's insane.
Diabolical.
I'll say this. It's a great trade for the Dolphins, actually. It is. It's a great trade. Because you want to know something? Of all the people that would go for first-round picks, I never thought in my wildest dreams that Jaylen Waddle would. I'm not going to lie. I look at the deal that the Dolphins got for Jaylen Waddle, and I look at the deal that the Colts got for, Michael Pittman. Who's, not there. Those two aren't really that far off. I'm taking this deal. Now, with that being said, am I heartbroken? Of course I am. Of course I'm heartbroken, because this is a true end of an era. Now, I understand this era isn't exactly looked at to the outsiders as very fond and very fun. But I assure you, if you've been a Dolphins fan for a long time, you'll know that the era before this era, it was even more depressing, ironically enough. It was actually worse, ironically enough. So Mike McDaniel, for all the pointing and laughing that he gets, he actually helped the Dolphins, at the end of the day, build up value and get some trade. You know what I mean? But if Waddle can stay healthy, and if he can fix the drop problems, it's going to be real dangerous with Waddle, with Sutton, with Pat Bryant, with Marvin Mims, who I really love. I think that this Denver Broncos offense has a chance to take another level. Now, with that being said, a first-round pick, even if it's a late one, just seems like a lot. And you could tell, because there was a report earlier from the Dolphins that they probably weren't going to trade Jaylen Waddle, that they were going to pair him with Malik Willis and Devon Achane, and it was going to work out. Well, now, when they saw the first-round pick, you have to take that. Now you have 2 first-round picks, one of 5 teams in the NFL that have 2 first-round picks in this year's draft. It's a good draft to really build up your, the teams, the holes that teams have, which the Dolphins have every single hole to fill. Pause. So I think that this trade right here is going to help us greatly at filling up everything that we need to fill up so that.
Oh, man.
I'm sorry.
What do you need to fill up?
Filling up them holes, baby.
I try to hold it in. I was doing so good. To fill up all the bad spots that the Dolphins have, which is pretty much every position on the defensive side of the ball, guard and wide receiver. Okay, so it's a good trade for the Dolphins. I think we now have 11 picks. We have 11 picks in this coming NFL draft, and I believe 6 or 7 of them are going to be in the first 100. So I'm 1,000% grateful that this trade happened, but I'm very, very sad that Jaylen Waddle is off the team. So, yeah, that's my takeaway. Very unbiased.
It's the same thing, right? Though both these teams knew exactly what they were doing, right? These were 2 teams knew exactly what they were doing, exactly where they were going, what trajectory they were taking. The Denver Broncos are they're in their window right now. What do you do in your Super Bowl window? You go all in, right? You have a young quarterback getting in a young one who, I know Jaylen Waddle, everyone's like, is he a 1? Is he not a 1? He's a mid-tier 1. which is better than what they had. Cortland Sutton is a top tier 2 who's been moonlighting as a 1. They needed someone to win those consistent battles. Jaylen Waddle reminds me a little bit of like what we saw from like a young Stephon Diggs, the guy who can run all the routes, get the separation, win at the chains, and occasionally go for those deep balls, right? I think that's kind of what we get from him a little bit. I think he's a better character presence in the locker room than probably young Stephon Diggs was. But, at the same time, like this is great for Denver. And from the Miami Dolphins perspective, you knew where you were going. You knew what your trajectory was. You were rebuilding. Malik Willis is a stopgap quarterback. He's been a backup pretty much the whole time. You may get lucky and see some great things out of Malik Willis. Wouldn't be surprised. We've seen him perform. We've seen him do good things. You give your young quarterback and Quinn Ewers a chance to sort of progress. You get to see what you possibly have in him. And he gets to compete a little bit, which you never really gave him an opportunity for before. And you get a ton of picks out of this. So this is a great deal for both teams for the trajectory they are on. No team came out better than the other. The Dolphins were not going to win with Jaylen Waddle eating up cap space on their roster. Is he young? Could you keep him for a little while? Sure. Is he your best wide receiving option? Absolutely. But at the end of the day, what's more valuable? A wide receiver 1 with a team that has nowhere to use a wide receiver 1, or draft picks to build a roster the correct way? Granted, they still have to succeed in doing that. Right? That'll be the ultimate tell if this trade was good, is how good the GM and the organization used those picks. But as of right now, the future is bright in Miami because you're starting to load up on the things you need to do to rebuild the roster.
Yeah, the dichotomy, what you kind of just talked about, Joe, the dichotomy of these two teams was super interesting to me. Like the fact that the Dolphins might, Sammy, I don't know if you've looked at this roster recently. This might be the worst roster in football. Like this roster
looked at it plenty, yes.
It is so bad. Like Devon Achane, I feel
trade, yeah.
It was really bad before Waddle, and now it's just awful. And Devon Achane is literally like he's the Ferrari next to the garage, the terrible looking house with the horrible garage. That's Devon Achane.
Bugatti Veyron sitting underneath the awning hooked up to a trailer.
When I was living in Montana, I drove by this trailer park every day, and there was one house that had this really nice Mustang living in it. One trailer that had this really nice Mustang living in it. And I was like, what the hell is this guy thinking? Like you could get a nicer house, you could get a nice apartment and drive a shittier car. That's what the Miami Dolphins and Devon Achane are right now. He's the Mustang in the trailer park right now. That's the damn shame about Achane.
I don't know if you guys are going to mention it, but that was kind of what I was going to lead to next. I think Devon Achane is gone now. I think it's 1,000% happening. I don't know if it's going to happen this offseason, but if it's not at this trade line, it's going to be next offseason. Like it's happening. Mm-hmm. And I think right now it would be in Miami's best interest to do it as soon as possible.
Do it now.
Because unfortunately, there is nothing to play for right now. You are playing for, and now that kind of brings up the question, why even sign Malik Willis? That kind of, like, Malik Willis is one of those, like, when he was brought in, it's like, okay, so the offense is going to be a little bit more promising. You got Waddle, you got Achane, you got building blocks. But now that you traded Waddle, it's just Achane, and the value of the running back is at its lowest, even though they've been getting paid a little bit more. I'm not going to lie. They haven't as of recently. But Devon Achane is way too good to be a part of a team that is very obviously trying to build for a future. And he's got to go. Like, I love him. He gave me a great season last year, in a season that like literally made me vomit and slip on it. It quite literally made me happy seeing Devon Achane getting into top 5 running back talks. And he is a top 5 running back, ladies and gentlemen. So I think any team, maybe Seattle, if they want a Devon Achane, we have him ready for you. And we just give us a first round pick, from next year.
Pick 32. From
a 32nd or even better, just give us one from next year. You know what I mean? Next year, give us one, Let's see how you guys do this year, I would love a first round pick from anybody right now. And Devon Achane is 1,000% at this value right now. He is worth a first round pick in my opinion.
And I was curious because you guys said it should happen sooner. I wouldn't be surprised if this is a mid-season trade.
Right.
Where you're you have some injury concerns come up in some of these running back rooms and some of these Super Bowl window opening teams. They have the salary cap. Maybe they do at that point value Achane a little higher to fill that gap. Like we've seen multiple times premier backs get moved in season due to early injuries happening to teams and players at critical positions. Like it would not surprise me that be an in-season trade for a 2027 draft pick. I think a first rounder may be a little bit asking too much. Granted,
Jaylen Waddle got a first and a third. Hey,
I mean, he did, but We have seen it a significantly more difficult to even find a mid-tier wide receiver one in the draft, right? Especially in the later rounds, right? Because essentially they got the 30th pick or like the 29th pick, right? Like they didn't get like a top 10 pick for Jaylen Waddle, right? Like that's where you find your wide receiver ones. Malik Neighbors, right? Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase. Most of your wide receiver ones in the draft, you're not finding in the back half of the first round. Hell, you're not finding them hardly in the second round. Like Antonio Brown and some of these guys, these are outliers, right? They're not the
Outliers,
norm,
yep.
right? So you're going to pay a premium for Jaylen Waddle. From a running back perspective, you're starting to look at it, and running back, the cost value from a contract perspective isn't very high. I think you have a significantly higher level of hit percentage in the draft from a running back position in the mid rounds and in later first rounds than you would at the early rounds because people aren't valuing running backs that high. I mean, remember, Ashton Genty was considered to be one of the best players in the draft. Hell, we knew he was the best running back. He kind of, like in comparison to people taking ahead of him, he was better than some of those guys, right? But because he's a running back, he fell. That's the problem with A-Chain is that I don't think he's going to command a one. Still, getting a two, like a mid second rounder is not bad for a team trying to fill some holes.
Yeah, there certainly is a lot of holes, like you talked about, Sammy, about this for this NFL team that resides in Miami. But Sammy, you brought up two questions that I literally had written down in my notes. One was Achane gone too, and two was why would they sign Malik Willis if they were just going to trade all of that? He's set up for the most epic fail of all time right now, unless they go crazy in the draft and get all these offensive linemen and receivers and a new I just don't see that happening. So again, Malik Willis, we're going to see him running around like freaking Bears Justin Fields next year if they don't get some support for him. But I also want to talk about this a little bit more from the Broncos perspective because, like I said, Waddle is a mid-tier wide receiver one, but I can't help but wonder if they would have been better off maybe keeping that first and third round pick, using that to, select whoever the hell they want, whether it just be upgrading the offense in a different way, upgrading the defense in a different way, and then spending in free agency, maybe going and getting a Stephon Diggs, or maybe going and getting a Jawan Jennings who's still available, a Deebo Samuel who's still available, one of those receivers who's still available, something like that for Denver. But I do like Jaylen Waddle, and like I said, I think Sean Payton's system is going to fit Waddle well, and Bo Nix has got his guy now. He hasn't had a wide receiver one yet, a true wide receiver one, and Jaylen Waddle is going to be that for the Denver Broncos in this offense coming up in 2026.
This has been Between the Uprights. Football is life. The rest is just details.